Hey, good morning. My name is Cassidy Ellis. I'm the Local Governments Program Manager at SPEAR. Welcome to another one of our City Efficiency Leadership Council webinars. We're having somewhat of a off-schedule webinar, but kind of a special occasion webinar this month. Usually we have these the third or fourth Thursday of the month, but we're adding in an extra one because really wanted to share this very interesting and exciting program with everyone and hopefully get some good interest and information. So today we'll be talking about DOE's SWIFT initiative with Shannon DOE. So for those of you who are new to CELC, just a reminder, we're a program of the city or of the State Energy Conservation Office, SECO, and the CELC is a collaborative education outreach networking program amongst public entities in the state of Texas to share information about energy management best practices, sustainability, resilience, a number of other interest areas. Few announcements. So the City Efficiency Leadership Council, not only do we meet in these webinars once a month, but 3 times a year, we bring together, we come together in regional roundtable meetings. This month, we're actually doing a special session in April, not this month, next month, excuse me. We're going to do a special meeting that is a statewide meeting where we're going to talk about what's going on with the Texas legislative session, talk about some topics that are emerging around energy. Of course, those of you in Texas who experienced the winter storms a couple weeks ago can imagine that there is a lot of legislation being introduced into the legislature around a response to those winter storms and the energy system. So should be a really interesting meeting. That is going to be Monday, April 19th, 9 to 11. And that's going to be with my colleagues at SPEAR who work on our policy issues. The next webinar is 2 weeks from today, and we are going to have Patricia Vega from Interwisely, and she's going to talk about a remote energy assessment tool that provides free access to remote energy audits for both residential and commercial, but she's mostly going to talk about her residential work and how it's a really easy to use free tool to evaluate energy savings opportunities for your home. So that's 2 weeks from today. I will send out registration links to both of these in my follow-up email. The survey for today's webinar is particularly important to fill out if you are interested in learning more or participating in the SWIFT initiative. So Shannon's going to share about this program, and for those of you who are interested in participating or just learning more, please do fill out the survey. There's a couple specific questions about it on there, and then I will make sure and get your information to Shannon so that you can get started or learn more about the program. Similarly, if you are here for ICC CEUs, that's International Code Council, please fill out the survey and I'll get those to you probably around Monday. If you have any other announcements, questions, or comments, please put that in the chat box. In the chat box, make sure and click the down arrow so that you send your comment not only to the panelists but to the attendees so that everyone can see your questions. And at the end of Shannon's presentation, if anyone would like to submit a verbal comment or question, please raise your hand in the Zoom interface and I can allow you to talk. So hopefully we'll have a lot of good comments and feedback today. So with that, I am going to go ahead and transition over to our speaker today, Shannon Zarett. I'm sorry, Zarett. Sorry. And she is with the Department of Energy's Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy, and she is going to talk with us about the SWIFT program. So with that, I am going to stop sharing, and Shannon, feel free to pull up your presentation.
All right, great. Thank you, Cassidy. Okay, I'm gonna. All right. Well, again, thank you guys for joining us today. I really appreciate getting the opportunity to talk to you about SWIFT. And so, as Cassidy mentioned, I'm with the Department of Energy in their Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy. And if you're a little more familiar with DOE, I am housed in the Weatherization Office. And so my role there is to manage our sustainable wastewater infrastructure of the future initiative. And so this program does have a little history to it. So I'll give you some of that context up front, and then I'll talk about what we're looking to do now with the initiative. And so in general, SWIFT works with water utilities to accelerate a sustainable pathway towards sustainable infrastructure. And so in terms of why DOE is working in this space, because sometimes we get asked, this is interesting, you know, it's kind of something that people haven't thought about when it comes to the DOE, but there are about 30 billion kilowatts per year of energy consumed by municipal wastewater treatment systems. And so this equates to about 2 billion in annual electric costs, or 25 to 45 or 40% of a treatment plant's annual operating budget. And thinking about that, 5 times more energy is consumed by facilities than is actually needed for its treatment. And so with regulations becoming more and more stringent and the population expected to increase, we're going to see a 20% increase in energy use coming in the next few years. So it's a good time to think about energy savings in wastewater and water utilities. And so just to give you a little bit of history on the program, so SWIFT 1.0, we call the first iteration of the program 1.0. It was a 3-year partnership that ran from 2016 to 2019. And we worked with 70 different wastewater treatment facilities with the primary goal of getting them to reduce their energy intensity by 5% in the short term, and then helping them plan out how to get to 30% energy savings. So helping them prioritize which infrastructure upgrades work best to get them to their energy savings goals. And so on average, during that 3-year training period from 2016 to 2019, our facilities saw a 6.9% reduction in energy intensity over their baseline. And so there are very specific recommendations that we made to get to that 6.9 figure. And so I'll reference those as we go along further into the conversation. One of the end products, the final end products of the program, was the Wastewater Energy Management Toolkit. And a lot of times in our programming, we develop a number of resources and tools as we work side by side with our partners. And so what we did is we compiled all of those resources together and created this toolkit so that others could learn and benefit from the work we did with that initial partner set. And so I also think that the toolkit is a great visual representation of how that initial program was structured. And so there were 4 main tracks that we looked at. The very first from the beginning was data management. For those facilities who hadn't really been tracking their data before, we worked with them to set up a system. For those that had, you know, sort of an in-house or they were using another tool to manage their data, we kind of worked with them to see if we could give them a little bit more insight on the data they already had. We then moved into infrastructure upgrades. So first prioritizing low and no cost measures, and then moving into things that are a little bit more capitally intensive and prioritizing those strategically. Third is the project financing phase. So working with folks who were actively funding at the time to get them to walk through their program and getting people to come in who had successfully used different financing tools to share lessons learned, what they wish they knew getting into it beforehand. And then the final piece of the program is that we worked with each facility to draft their long-term energy management plan. So basically charting out what the next 10 years was going to look like for them in energy savings. And so just to walk through some of these resources a little bit, within energy data management, we have our energy data management manual, which is a great step-by-step guide for how do you define your scope and boundaries. There are going to be some elements that you can control and some that you can't. How do you establish your baseline? How do you convert your data? And then how you set the system up to be sustainable over time so it's not too onerous a task. And so for those facilities that were just getting started, this is the process that we ran through for them. For those who had already had a system in place, we work with them to see if we could get them a little bit more insight on their data, as I mentioned. And so again, for those facilities that didn't have an in-house tool, we did introduce them to 3 publicly available data management tools. 2 are run out of the EPA. The EPA is partnered with us. So they walk through those 2 different resources, which are the Energy Assessment Tool and their Portfolio Manager. And then at the DOE, we also have an Energy Performance Indicator tool. Once we had finished focusing on the data element of it, we moved into low and no cost measures. And so each facility that participated in the program received an energy assessment from one of our industrial assessment centers. And so when I had displayed that graphic at the very beginning of the presentation, that 6.9% figure came out of the recommendations that the IACs made. And so on average, in implementing these measures, the facility saw about a 5 to 7% energy savings within a 2-year payback period. And so what we did is compiled all of the most common recommendations made to our facilities together into this list. And so kind of covering things like installation, assessment, and operations. And so this is publicly available. I'll make sure I'll let you know where all of this is housed if you'd like to reference this later. Another useful tool that we're actually developing now, and I reference this off the kind of data management piece of it, is we are hoping to create a sample facility that walks through each and every single one of the tools that I've already highlighted and will highlight. So you'll get to start out, with this facility, this mock facility in North Carolina. It was going through all of its different attributes and then seeing how we use the sample data to chart what it'd look like if you use the energy assessment tool, if you use portfolio manager, if you used our Enpi tool. And so from that, we'll walk all the way through the program with that sample facility so you can actually see an output of what a strategic plan would look like at the end. And so we've classified kind of what their treatment process is and what kind of advanced technologies that they're implementing, and have created a data set that you can use as well. And so you'll see how that works throughout the whole program. Now, once the facilities had started to see those energy savings in the short term, that 5% payback, we then worked with them to prioritize more high impact measures. And we broke these down into 4 different categories: technologies, management approaches, process improvements, and then resource recovery. And so each of these could save anywhere between 15 to 30% energy savings. And so what we did is we helped each facility prioritize which mix of measures made the most sense for them to get to their energy savings goal. And so in order to facilitate that, we created a very quick little tool called the Measure Planning Workbook. And so what this tool allows users to do is compare different technologies or different management approaches against a set of comprehensive criteria. So I've got a couple samples in there. So, what is the regulatory impact of this? What is the upfront cost? What's the payback period? What are the long-term maintenance costs? How much staff time is devoted to this? And so what users will do is weight those criteria in terms of relative importance to the facility, and then it'll shoot back out a score so you can kind of get a sense of what will work best, at least in the short term. So if, for example, upfront cost is prohibitive, then we can explore different management approaches that could yield some significant energy savings for you without a significant upfront investment. Then we moved into the financing phase, which I discussed a little bit about. What we did was we brought in folks that at that moment in time were actively funding and actively financing different options. And so they'll walk through the process, what's eligible, how to apply, kind of things that they want to make sure people know before going out for it. We brought in people who had successfully used those different financing mechanisms to share those lessons learned and kind of talk about what they wish they knew before they had gotten into it. In addition to walking through that matrix and having that mixture of funding, we also made sure that folks were aware of 3 different search engines to keep finding opportunities. So we have a Better Buildings Financing Navigator. EPA has their Water Financing Clearinghouse, and then there's also a database of state incentives for renewables and efficiency. And within the Office of Weatherization, we often work with partners who utilize energy savings performance contracting as one of their key financing mechanisms. And so what we wanted to do was create a guide very specifically for the wastewater sector to kind of demystify the process and then provide a couple of case studies so they can see how that mechanism was utilized. So the ultimate culmination of the program was the facility's long-term energy management plan. And so we have a couple of facilities that offered to provide their plan online. Miami-Dade is one of them, and this is an excerpt from their plan. So on the left, what they're doing is walking through the low and no cost measures that the IACs had recommended to them. And they're just kind of covering how much energy was saved and what the cost savings were associated with those energy savings. On the right, they're walking through the total amount of energy saved throughout the 3-year training period. And so in addition to kind of showing that short-term impact of the program, these plans also outlined what they were strategically prioritizing over the next 10 years, how they plan to finance those, and just a little bit of information about what other options they were considering, what other opportunities they were considering outside of SWIFT. And so all of these solutions that I've highlighted are housed on our Better Buildings Solution Center. And so this has quite a number of different solutions on there, not just wastewater. So anything that we develop in the future, especially as I'm transitioning talking about part 2 of the program, will be housed on this center. And so there'll be a link at the end of the presentation if you want to check that out. But everything in there is everything that I just mentioned in the toolkit is available online right now. Okay, so that takes us into where we're going. And so one of the things that we noticed in SWIFT 1.0 is that we had partners that were at varying stages in terms of energy management. We had facilities that were just getting started, and perhaps their energy bill had remained relatively static over time, but either the jurisdiction was just now prioritizing energy savings, or the regulatory requirements were becoming more stringent, and they knew they would have to install some new technology that would kind of bump up their energy intensity. And so they wanted to get started on prioritizing energy savings. And then you also had some facilities who had done quite a bit. They already had a CHP system installed, Class A biosolids, so they wanted to keep moving forward on some more advanced technologies as well. And so what we did is we broke part 2 into 2 separate tracks. And so in one track, we're looking to work with 100 different facilities in a voluntary partnership to get them to achieve that 5% short term. So working with all those facilities to make sure that those IAC recommendations are implemented just sort of at a baseline, things that they can do that are low hanging fruit, low and no cost, and get them at that 5% energy savings level. And then help them plan how to get to 25% energy savings. What's going to work best for them within the restrictions or boundaries that they're dealing with at their facility. In track 2, we're looking to work with a smaller cohort of 25 facilities who are ready for implementing advanced technology in the form of renewable energy or resource recovery, for example. And so just in terms of terminology, the way that we are referring to these two different tracks is track one is SWIFT toolkit training. And so those are for facilities that are interested in implementing those key building blocks of energy management, getting started in the process, and we'll walk them through our SWIFT tools. And then there's the Energy Recovery Accelerator. And so that's for facilities that are looking to integrate advanced technologies into their portfolio. And in many cases, some have already done quite a bit, and now they're looking, in the next stage. So Swift Toolkit training is going to look a lot like Swift 1.0. And what we're doing, the way that we are implementing this program is we are working with the state energy offices and then building a network in state. We are also subcontracted with the National Rural Water Association, as well as have a memorandum of understanding with the Water Environment Federation. And so we're utilizing those networks to help us recruit and help use their expertise to kind of create statewide cohorts that can walk through this program, from data management to infrastructure upgrades to financing to long-term plan development. In the next track, the Energy Recovery Accelerator is a little bit different. And so facilities who are interested in this track, what they will do is choose from one of 4 advanced technology tracks. They're welcome to sit in all 4. Typically time is prohibitive, and we do heavily customize the track that you're in for that facility. And so if you sit in on another one, it may be very specifically tailored to what that group is interested in. And so we've got 4 categories, and these are not meant to be exhaustive, just kind of create general parameters. So energy capture, which covers resiliency, on-site generation, and renewable energy integration. Energy efficiency, so advanced technologies for energy efficiency. Resource recovery, which would cover biosolids and water reclamation. And then advanced data management, so your SCADA systems and your AI. There'll also be several off-roads in addition to the core technical content. And so facilities who are interested in having us work with them one-on-one to draft their long-term energy management plan, we're happy to do that. We have a really nice framework called 50001 Ready Navigator. We do tend to be agnostic about the types of tools, so we'll make sure we present all of our different tools. But if you're interested in this one in particular, what we'll do is we can walk you through the entire process. And so what's nice about it is you walk through a series of 25 steps. It kind of has you look at your facility very holistically. And so what ends up happening in the end is you get a series of playbooks that you can download, and you can very easily just copy and paste a lot of that input into your strategic plan. And the other tool that we have is, and I mentioned this a little bit up front, is our energy performance indicator tool. What's nice about this is if you're already using something, for example, if you're using Portfolio Manager, it's very easy for you to download your data and just input it into this tool. But what's nice is that it gives you a little bit more insight into your data. And so it can perform regression analysis and kind of figure out what is really impacting your energy intensity, which can be nice if your system, is very complex, if you're dealing with biogas, or let's say you're installing, UV disinfection, and you're going to be implementing some background efficiency upgrades. You can see what impact those efficiency upgrades are having against a lot of that energy intensity that's taken up by the UV installation. So there's a lot of insight that you can get a little bit more granular than some of the other tools. We also have our measure suite. And so we're looking to release a module that can help facilities measure the impacts of their proposed upgrades. So if there's a specific upgrade you're looking to make and you want to see what the impact that'll be on your energy intensity, this tool can do that. And they also do have modules that help you optimize different processes and plants, like heaters and pumps and fans. And so if you're interested in any of those 3 tools, like I said, there'll be plenty of off-roads to work one-on-one with someone from our team to walk you through those and get some insight on the data that you'd like. So in terms of timeline, and ignore the dates on the side because we've wanted to modify this because COVID has had such a significant impact on all of our partners. And so the key for us about this program, the one word I'm going to say probably several million times from here on out, is flexibility. We want to make sure that this program is as flexible as possible, and we want to make sure that we're working with our partners as much as we can to provide that flexibility. And so if you're interested in the program, just a general outline of what this is going to look like, you'll sit down with us, we'll have a one-on-one conversation. And in that conversation, we'll get to know, where are you at? Where would you like to be? What upgrades would you like to make? What have you already done? And then what barriers are you facing? Based on that information, we'll start to craft a very specific customized program for you. Eventually, once all the tracks are assembled, we'll break you down, we'll kind of present, our plan to you, and you will sign off on that plan within those peer groups that you have. Once that happens, we'll walk into the technical workshops. And so those will be very peer driven. We'll bring in past partners, current partners to talk about lessons learned. We'll also bring in our team that have been on site when these upgrades have been initiated at the facility. And we're even happy if you're interested in new technologies and you'd like to kind of bring in a group of people from the private sector to kind of showcase and demonstrate different technologies, we can definitely talk about how to do that. Now, in terms of your data, sharing data with us is entirely optional. We can help you set your baseline data. So if you've been doing all of these upgrades, but energy data is kind of the area where you haven't had as much progress, we can help you with that. We can help you set your baseline data, but you are not required to share your data with us. One of the things that we will ask is if you receive an industrial assessment center energy assessment through our partner Better Plants, and I'll talk about them in a minute, or if you have any recommendations that are made to you by one of our team, we would really love to see how that performs. And then from there, we'll move into the financial planning workshops. So this will take the form again. We can bring in a mixture of folks who are currently funding different options, bring in people who had successfully funded different projects, as well as kind of have, a how to write an RFP session or how to respond to a grant writing session. The last piece of the program is that each facility will be paired with a technical account manager, and you can work with that technical account manager for up to 10 additional hours. And so you can kind of consider them your own in-house consultant, and they can help you with any number of the tools that I've talked about, help you walk through some ways to strategically prioritize what you're thinking about, make recommendations, or help you draft your energy management plan. So a lot of different options there. So again, then in terms of what are you going to be signing up for if you're joining this accelerator, the key for us is participation. We do not require that you issue an RFP. We do not require that you set an energy intensity goal exactly as the way that we've outlined it there. In many cases, some of you may be close to that goal already. We don't require you to report your energy data to us. Our goal is to provide the technical assistance for you so that when you're ready to issue an RFP, you feel confident in the choices that you're making moving forward, and that we've helped you chart out a path to get to your energy savings goals. And so once you get this agreement, if you're interested, if you need your general counsel to look over it and they want to make any modifications, we're happy to talk to them about that. Just let us know. And we've had people make small suggestions before. We're happy to accommodate that. The other key piece of the program is that we are partnered with the Better Plants program, which is also a very wonderful program, and they serve every major energy consuming sector. What's nice is that SWIFT has continuity through our partnerships with Better Plants. So after the 3-year training period, if you like working with your technical account manager, if you want to stay connected to DOE, and if you want to keep working towards some of the goals that we've set or keep working with some of the tools and resources we've developed, you can do so through the Better Plants program. And so that's a great way to keep moving in that direction. often we talk one-on-one with the utilities to make sure that they kind of understand what the program is about and what's involved, and we've kind of compiled this list of frequently asked questions over time. So in terms of what the time commitment is, what we're looking to do is cover a 3-year time period. We want to make sure the sessions are spaced out throughout the year. We'll make sure that we're coordinating with your schedule, and we don't want those technical workshops to be more than 2 hours on average. And so the individual technical assistance can be scheduled at your discretion with your technical account manager. And so we want this to be useful, meaningful, but we also want it to be a light lift. And so, we're not draconian in our approach. If something is feeling overwhelming or too time consuming, let us know. We will make those modifications and those shifts to make sure that we have that flexibility for you. Another good question is, what if I'm already involved in a state-run program or working with a consultant? So as far as the state programs are concerned, we love that. We want to build synergies between what we're working on and then what the state is working on. And so that's why we're engaging the state energy offices. And so hopefully we would be able to join on to what they're doing and share some of our DOE tools and resources. If you are working with a consultant, that's great. Many of them are often our primary POCs for the facility. They're welcome to join. They're welcome to take part. What's really nice is that many of them already work with our Measure Suite and our Enpi tool. And so we're planning on releasing several new modules and anything that we develop throughout the program. So it's a perfect opportunity for them to get a first crack at those resources. We often get questions about are we going to cover regulatory barriers to implementation. We do have jurisdictions that have challenges with the way that they manage their biogas. We're happy to cover regulatory barriers, but it raises a more important feature of the program is that we're meant to be responsive. The program is meant to be responsive to the facility. So if there's something you want us to address, we're happy to work with you and figure out a way to cover it. And we'll also make sure we're taking stock of the program regularly to make sure that it's on point and it's what you had expected. In terms of our energy data, your energy data, like I mentioned, sharing data is encouraged. We would love to see how our recommendations are performing for you, but it is entirely optional. If you do share that data with us, we keep that all confidential, and we only share it in the aggregate. So that graphic that I displayed up front is the only way we would share that data with the public. And we do have the platform. If you have any success stories you'd like us to highlight, we do have that national platform, but you just let us know. We wouldn't do that without your consent. And then we're also happy to work with the state to see if we can get some of our technical workshops certified. If you'd like your operators to attend, we're happy to work with them to see if we can get them some CE credit for attending. I think that covers it. I know I ran through that fast, but I've done this so many times that I think it's now become second nature. So I'm happy to take any questions, but before I do, one of the key things that I think we often get asked, because we have a lot of competing priorities typically that are going on, is just to reiterate that it is a voluntary program. And so if you join up and you say 3 months from now, you know what, Shannon, a lot's gone on, I need to take a little bit of a hiatus for 3 months. Not a problem, let us know. We'll do the best that we can to move some things around and make sure we can get you plugged back in when you're ready. But if things, change so significantly that you say, unfortunately, I think I'm going to have to withdraw from the program, that's perfectly fine. We understand those things happen. We want to make sure that we're being flexible. There's absolutely no penalty doing that. We'll do everything we can to encourage you to stay flexible with you. That's our ultimate come up. But as a reference to some of the material that I mentioned, so on here you'll find a link to our Better Building Solutions Center there. That's where you will find our toolkit. And so this is my contact information as well. You can fill out the survey that Cassidy mentioned. I'll receive that input. So might be a good way to get a little bit more detail on things you'd like to share. But if you'd like to reach out to me directly, feel free to do so. But I'm happy to take questions now.
Great. Thank you so much, Shannon. That was so interesting, and it's just seems like such an amazing program. And every time I hear about programs and resources that DOE has developed, I'm always so impressed that there's so much free support out there. And I know, in talking to your colleagues at DOE, it's, you guys want to be out there and help and get people in these programs. And so, I really hope that the audience today, this resonates and that we have some folks that take advantage of Swift and Swifter and the Accelerator. So we do have a couple questions in the chat box. A reminder to everyone, please do put your questions in the chat box or raise your hand and I can allow you to speak. A few folks did ask, we will be sharing slides and a recording after the session. So I'll send an email to all of you with that information. So one question that we received is the energy indicator performance tool free to use and open to any facility?
Yeah, it's available online. You can probably just Google those words, and I would hope that that's the first thing that comes up. But if you email me or include your information in the survey, I can send it to you directly. But all of that is free and available to the public right now.
And can you distinguish that from Portfolio Manager? Can you kind of differentiate those two
Yeah,
tools?
so essentially, Portfolio Manager is a great tool, and so it's kind of going to give you your high level breakdown, just sort of so you can see, what are the trends in your facilities over the last, couple of years. You can see, are you going up or going down? Um, but what the ENPI tool can do is perform a little bit more intensity on your data. You can kind of see what is actually impacting that energy intensity. So it goes one step or a couple steps beyond, rather than to just say, okay, am I improving or am I going up or down? It can kind of tell you, why are you going up? Why are you going down? Essentially, it's a very kind of simplistic way, but that's essentially the way that you can kind of differentiate the two a little bit.
Got it, got it. And it has some amount of kind of building specific materiality. Like if you have a certain kind of facility, it gives you particular insight into that facility type. Am I remembering that correctly?
Are you talking about the portfolio manager?
EIP, ENPI.
Yes, you can do both. So if you just have, one campus, you can look at that campus. You can also roll up all of your different facilities into sort of a corporate level rollout or roll up, excuse me. And it also has a greenhouse gas calculator and inventory essentially that you can utilize. But the EPA portfolio manager is also nice because that kind of is a nice visualization. And I think that they have an option where you can kind of request your data. If it isn't readily available, you can request your data from your utility, which is very nice. But what's even better is that both Portfolio Manager and our ENPI tool, they speak to each other. So if you've got your data kind of set up and you've got that visualization in Portfolio Manager, that's likely how you would begin, just sort of starting to create that visualization and track it. ENPI would be your next step, and we can take that data out of Portfolio Manager relatively easily and just feed it into our tool.
Great. And I have my video off just because my internet is a little unstable, so I apologize for being a little black box. Okay, another question from the audience is, are there RFP templates to share from the Swift One Accelerator?
So what we do, we can provide you RFP templates for this. From Swift One, we didn't, that wasn't a component of the program because we were just sort of starting that pathway for them. But as we develop, we can create those templates for you. So that's exactly the kind of thing I was mentioning before. As we go throughout the program, anytime we come up against a point where we want to create something for you, we will develop it for you to kind of help through that process. We did a very similar thing for the energy management, the strategic energy data management long-term plans. We have a couple of templates and frameworks for you to use for that. So we'll do the very kind of a very same thing for the RFPs if you'd like.
Great. And again, if that person is interested in getting those resources, email you for more information.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to sit down. And if you guys are, kind of representing, your utility, I'm happy to do an additional conversation with your group. If you've got a team of colleagues that you'd like to hear more about this, I'm happy to provide this presentation again. That's exactly what I'm here for.
And that actually brings up another question. What is the kind of timeline that you have seen for onboarding? So, say we have someone on the session today who's like, this seems like a great opportunity for our utility, but there's a whole chain of command that you need to get on board. How long have you seen that take?
It's a great question because it widely varies. It really depends on your management structure within your utility and what's the appropriate protocol for getting something like this approved. So for me, I would say on average we would probably be about 2 months. I've had facilities who've turned it around in literally less than a week. And I've had facilities where it's taken, upwards of 6 months. So it really depends if you've got general counsel that needs to approve, and then you've got a board or a commission that needs to approve. That can kind of take a little bit longer. But if it's simply a decision that you guys can make sort of internally and just have a senior manager sign off, or even whoever your point of contact for the program can sign off on it, then it can be a relatively quick process. And just know we're keeping recruitment for the Accelerator open all the way through the spring into the summer. And so probably at the end of June is where we would cut it. So we have a good group of folks who are already on the program, and we're getting started with them. But what's nice is that initial phase work is very one-on-one and deliberative with the individual utility. So there's plenty of time for us to get some more people interested in the program as well. So we'd like to keep that flexible as flexible as possible. And even then, we always offer parallel programming. So if the Swift Accelerator may not work for you, we may have other programming that runs in parallel. So do reach out to me if you're interested in any of those things, so I can keep you in the loop for any independent programming we run. As far as track 1 is concerned, we're working with the states and coordinating through them. And so what we'll do is once we initiate those cohorts, we'll kind of get consensus on who's interested and figure out what the best time within the next 4 years that would work best for them to hold those series of workshops.
Great, great. And you mentioned that there is a lot of flexibility and a lot of, there's not an expectation that at the end of any of these programs you will take a specific action, or there's not an expectation that you will install the improvement or whatever was identified. But I guess, do you have a sense of, like, say you go through the accelerator and you develop a project and you put together the financial justification for it, how quickly before that information, I guess, becomes stable? So I'm not sure if that question makes sense, but like, say you do all of this work, but then really can't go out for funding or for a bond at that time. Is that information still pretty relevant for a few years?
Oh yeah, so I mean, if it's the financial barrier that is the issue, that would probably come up during the planning stage anyway. And like I had mentioned, we would prioritize kind of thinking of creative management approaches that you could take, as well as prioritizing some of that low hanging fruit, so that you could still see some gains in the short term. But whatever we plot out is still going to be relevant because it's still what we would strategically prioritize when funding and when financial options become available. But we tend to, like I said, If that's prohibitive, we will work with you to figure out what you can do in the short term to still see some gains until that financial situation uh, becomes more beneficial or is realized essentially.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Definitely anyone in the audience, please submit questions for Shannon. I'll keep going if we don't have any more, but I want to definitely give everyone in the audience an opportunity to ask questions. Another thing that, you know, I've had some conversations about with some water folks is that their system facilities planning and energy efficiency work is tied into either a city climate plan or the utility itself has a climate goal or plan. Which how much can, I guess, the work that's done in these accelerators be tied directly to emissions and sustainability goals? Like, is there sort of that expertise in the accelerators?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the key components of that 50,001 Ready Navigator, and as a reminder, that was the tool that provided you with the framework to draft your long-term energy management plan. One of the components that is built into that system is making sure it's very, very specific to the facility. So it's making sure that you're taking into account what strategic priorities, not only at the facility, but within your jurisdiction, whether that's local, city, or state level priorities that may be going on. That way you can weave those priorities into that plan and figure out which mix of tactics or which mix of upgrades are going to get you to hit that goal, so you can be in line with those strategic priorities coming from wherever they may be coming from. But it is a significant component of how we help people plan for the future.
Absolutely, that's great. And one of the things that you and I talked about when we were kind of planning this is it seems like uh, participation and working with these these programs is actually a really good opportunity for uh, energy services companies to, it seems like energy services companies would be important partners in this process, that they would help encourage participation so that their contacts in the industry, you know, will do that foundational work and then maybe generate sales pipeline. Have you seen, have you worked with performance contracting companies in the process?
Yeah, absolutely. So that they become an essential component of the financing phase. And so depending on, we again, it's very tailored off of what the facility is interested. If that's something they're interested in understanding a little bit more or pursuing, we typically bring them in to kind of walk through what that program consists of, as well as somebody who's successfully utilized a service company in the past to talk about it and share their experience. So it is a good opportunity for them to kind of come in and just talk about, what services they provide, what it's going to look like, what the expectations are. And it's a good way also for the facility to hear about it without, feeling as though they need to be committed to any one particular thing, because it'll be in a mix of very different financial opportunities for them. And especially for track one as well, because that's a statewide cohort, we've done that very specifically, because every state kind of has also for the state energy offices or for offices that offer funding and grants. Every state is slightly different in how that is organized as well. And so we took that statewide approach because as we were talking to different offices, it became clear that there were very specific requirements to receive those very specific grants or very specific funding, and they wanted the opportunity to be able to communicate with the facilities, like when is the right time to get started, because often what they were finding is a facility would start construction and then they would say, can we come out for this assistance, and it just was a timing issue that they needed to be involved a little earlier on in the process. And so it's a very similar thing for the energy service companies, is just sort of kind of walking through it and getting everybody to kind of understand what are the particulars of the program. And so they're very welcome to participate. And once we get into that point where we're talking with the facilities and seeing what they're interested in, that's a good point that will engage them.
Great. Well, I'm sold. It sounds like a great opportunity. So if there aren't any other comments or questions from the audience, we can go ahead and wrap up a few minutes early and give you a bit of your morning back. Shannon, thank you so much. You're clearly so knowledgeable and, you know, believe in this program, and it just seems like a really wonderful program. So thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And then two other things now that I thought about it, because they're common things that come up. There are no size restrictions for joining, and we're happy to have water utilities join as well, water treatment utilities. Those are two things that are often asked. But thank you for having me as well. I wanted to not forget those last 2 points. But thank you. This has been great. I really appreciate getting to talk to you guys today.
Great. All right, well, everybody look out for your follow-up email later today with the survey, with the presentation, and with the recording. Hope to see you all in 2 weeks for the next webinar, and have a good rest of your day. Take care.